Hello, how are you all? I am jumping in live to chat to you guys about how to deal with a narcissistic parent, be it a mother, father, and or even a caregiver. So even if you're adopted or fostered or in the system, and your caregiver guardian was of those tendencies or traits. These are some of the ways that can help you in your healing and recovery from that relationship to manage. So when we've recognized that some of these traits from our caregiver or parent is toxic, and the scope of that toxicness is on a big scale, so they could be full-blown diagnosed with NPD, or they could just show some of those traits. And I mean, all of us on some level do have toxic traits because we've learnt them, we use them to get by. Sometimes we may create a situation that we've done ourselves to get what we want, and we are all human, we do that. However, there are very full-blown behaviors that are constant, where, especially in a parent, where we're constantly going, why can't I be seen? Why can't you validate me? Why can't you love me? Why can't you just nurture me like a parent does? And this is where it can really hurt, and we get really pent up in the destruction of our own well-being, our own worthiness, our own validation, our own trust in ourselves, because we're forever trying to fit into this box of our parent who displays these toxic traits, when they don't even know what that is. They just know that they need you to keep doing whatever they've conditioned you to be. So when we finally recognize that these are the traits, one of the things that we will consistently do, if you guys aren't sure if this is the case with this person, if they are showing these toxic traits, and if they are of that nature, personality, character, it's if you find yourself defending yourself, constantly standing up for yourself, constantly justifying your actions, your decisions, your choices to somebody who's always criticizing you about them, or always judging you about them, always questioning you about them, more often than not, that person will be toxic. A healthy relationship doesn't question your choices to make you feel bad. They may say, hey, I see where you're coming from, and I see how that will be really good for you. Have you thought about this? And they will give you a loving response. However, if you're going, well, why are you doing that? You're not who you used to be. What are you doing that for? Oh, remember when you used to do this? And they pull in old versions of you. They bring in spaces and words and traits and tones of things that you used to be, but you have grown from that. And they don't like it that they've grown. They need you as a past version of yourself. So let me know in the comments if this is resonating so far, so that I know that I am hitting the money with what I'm talking about today. So when we recognize that this could potentially be what's going on for us in this relationship dynamic, it's then about, okay, well, I always get embroiled, especially in a narcissistic relationship with a co-parent or a romantic partner as well. I always get stuck in the he said, she said of me constantly defending myself that I didn't say those things, or I didn't do that thing, or that's not what I meant, or that's not what I mean, or that's not what I'm doing, or that's not what I'm done. And even just that, I can feel the whole, I didn't do that. I can feel the familiar, of what that play used to play out like many years ago for me with these people, because I have narcissistic parent, narcissistic siblings, and narcissistic ex-romantic relationships. And you feel this pull. You are constantly trying to make this person understand that that is not what it is. They don't want to understand. They want you to be exactly like you're being, so that you think you're going crazy, and then they'll flip it all around, and that's the gaslighting and manipulation space and tactic and technique, which then keeps you in that toxic cycle, going round and round and round, regurgitating this stuff. And it is a merry-go-round. It's a constant hamster wheel. So when you're starting to pop boundaries in place with this person. Maybe you've tried the grey rock technique or method already. If you haven't, a grey rock, that method is, and I'm positive I've spoken about that in another live, but the grey rock method is when you're giving them very small answers. You're not defending, you're not proving your worth, you're not justifying yourself, you're not going in to battle for you. If they have an opinion or they have something to say that isn't very nice, your boundary statement, your grey rock method statement is going to be, thank you. Okay, thank you for your opinion. It's nice to know that that's how you feel. Like it's those really short worded responses, if a response is valid at all. If you're in a texting war, just stop. Just realize what you're doing and just go back away, back away, back away. If you're in a one-on-one, if you're living with the person, or if you're at a social event, or if you're doing a handover, and when we're talking about a parent, if you're on a phone call, it's a, okay, thank you for your opinion. Noted, I'll take that on board. Okay, I understand where you're coming from. It's those things. It's validating them. Yes, I know that you want to be validated. However, it's not about you. It's about them, and they are literally the child that you're validating. So when you then step back and take that stance, the whole dynamic of your relationship will start to shift like a little sundial or a little whatever plate. And then you will start to be able to heal without reacting, and you'll start responding. And this is one of the key stages in dealing with a narcissistic parent. So other examples, when you're starting to put boundaries in place and they're saying things, other examples of boundary statements can be, that was an interesting comment, or I see where you're coming from with that comment. And that's enough to be lighthearted. That's enough to be all of you. That's enough for you to be you. And you do see where they're coming. You just don't give anything of you back. It's about not giving you back. When you don't give you back, you're not giving your energy out. You don't have that energy leaking from you, which they are totally pulling with through that toxic cord that's connected to them. And if they're then saying, okay, well, I need you to do this, or I need you to do that, or you need to come over, or you need to do X, Y, Z, it's about, that doesn't work for me. That's your statement. Sorry, but that doesn't work for me. And if they come back at you and go, well, when will it work for you? When's this? I need to consult my schedule. I need to consult my partner. I need to consult work before I can come back to you. And that's where you leave it. You go then to a third party, because that takes it out of their control, that they can't actually just corner you. Another example could be, especially if they're being hurtful, can be, that is hurtful to me and I'm not going to listen to you right now. So if you're on a phone call with your parent, or, like Father's Day is a perfect example if we're dealing with a toxic father, or, the mother who's like, you never call, you never this, you never that. And then they're like, well, you this and you this, and it gets into that whole war of words. And then they'll bring up all of those past versions of you, which become hurtful and become irrelevant. You can either sit there and be like this and just be like, yep, 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 yep. So you're not actually taking it on, but you know what they're like. And then it can be, okay, I've got to go now, I'm hanging up. Or it could be, that is hurtful for me and I'm not going to listen to this. I arrange to say, for example, Happy Father's Day, hope you have a great day. And I'll talk to you another day. Another day. You don't say next week, tomorrow, next month, no anything. I'll talk to you another day. And that's the end of it. Then there's no commitment on your behalf as to when you're going to call them back. And then they can't come back to you and go, you said you were going to call today and you haven't. And you're not getting into more energetic leaks or energetic transference from you, because they're going to pick up straight onto that. So they've got something to come at you with, if that makes sense. So if that's resonating, let me know in the comments. If anybody has any questions around any of these things that I'm talking about today, please pop it in the comments and I'll come back later. Other questions that, if they're wanting you to do something, wanting you to go and run an errand, or wanting you to do something that you don't feel comfortable with, then just say that. Go, I appreciate that you're asking me to do that. However, I don't feel comfortable doing that. That's the end of it. If they then come at you again with, well, you owe me, I've done this, this, and this for you, and this is how you want to repay me. You know, why don't you do things for me anymore? You're not who you were. All of the same stuff comes up. You may as well just open back up that box that you know is going to come from then, because that's what's going to happen. And it's I'm just not comfortable with that. And that's the end of it. I've got to go now. Such and such needs me. Or, you know, I've got to go back to work. Or you use one of those really easy reasons to get out of the conversation. And you hang up. And then if they text you or call you and leave a message and it's of the same nature, you do not need to respond. You do not need to ring them back. You do not need to enter into that conversation. And then if they bring that up with you later, go back to that statement that I said before. I was feeling really hurt and picked on, and I wasn't going to listen to that right now. That's the end of it. And that is then just your go-to statement, because if they keep coming, well, you this and you that, or whatever that looks like, you just say the same thing again. I felt hurt and I didn't want to listen to being spoken to it like that in that moment. That's it. And you stick with the same statement over and over and over. And then if it's still the same stuff going round and round in a circle because you're not changing your answer to them, which you don't, because as soon as you change your answer, you're going to get into a war of words again. It's look, this conversation isn't going anywhere and I'm going to hang up now. And you hang up. And these boundaries that you're creating just in that moment is you taking back your own self-worth. It's you taking back your value. It's you taking back your power. Now, they're not going to like it. They're not going to like it at all. But that's not the point, because it's not about them. This is about you, looking after you, prioritizing you, and saying, no, sorry, that's not acceptable. I'm not going to let anybody treat me like that, regardless of whether they're a family member or not. Because if somebody in public, if you were out for dinner, restaurant, bar, whatever, in public, and someone spoke to you like that, what would you do? How would you respond? You'd be like, yeah, whatever, clearly he's got something going on, and you'd walk away. Same situation. What is so difficult in this situation, though, is that they are family, and that whole traditional family society conditioning and what we are raised to believe family should be is hanging in the balance pretty much. And when you have a narcissistic parent, sibling, grandparent, whatever that looks like, it could be a whole family, and you're the only one that's not, because you've served them all so well your whole life, and you're stepping back, you know, you're the black sheep. Oh, that person just goes and does what they want to do. That person goes and does this. You might then start to recognize that there's other family members, like extended family members, like aunties and uncles and cousins and things like that, that actually stepped out of the game a long time ago because they don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to be embroiled in it. And they're okay going off and doing their own thing because they're not getting hounded. They can see what's going on and they remove themselves, but they weren't serving anybody in that dynamic enough to be pulled back in. They're happy going and doing their own thing. They've created that boundary and that space to serve them for a reason. And when we start to sit back into that observer mode, when we recognize these things and we start putting these in place, we can go, oh yeah, that's why such and such, you know, auntie and uncle, whatever, don't even see them. I wonder why. And then you'll be at a barbecue and then you'll ask them one day and go, why aren't you in these things? And they'll be like, why are you in them? And you'll have this mind-blowing conversation that they've known all along and seen it all along and removed themselves a long time ago because of it. And of course, you would have been a child or whatever, and it's really difficult for you to actually do that, but you can do that for yourself now. Other things that you can do in this situation, because when we've recognized that we have a parent that will never be the traditional parent, I'm going to invert finger there because there is technically no traditional parent. When you recognize that you've got this parent that's not actually going to give you that nurturing, that parental validation, that is really just, you know, a rite of passage that our parents say, I'm proud of you, darling. I love you, darling. You've done such a good job. You're such a good mother. You're amazing. Yes, I can absolutely come and clean your house. Yes, I'm happy to come do the gutters. Yes, I'm happy to look at your car. Yes, I'm happy to have the kids for the weekend. Or, oh, I'm not got nothing on this weekend. How about I have the kids and you have a weekend off? You know, our parents will never be that. That parent will never be that person. Period. Yes, we want it. We want it. We want it. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely crave it. Crave to have a parent do that. And we see all of our friends' parents doing that. And we're like, why aren't I good enough? Why aren't I worthy enough? Why don't they love me enough? Why don't they love my children enough to do those things for me? And then when you ask, it'll be a perhaps, let me know if this resonates, it's different for everybody. When we even then ask the parent, can you do this or that? And they may commit to you in the moment, and then they take it away at the last minute. It's like carpet keeps getting pulled out from underneath you, because at the last minute it doesn't serve them. They're going to go to where they're needed the most, and it suits their storyline the most. It actually makes them look the best in their narrative that they've got running. They will absolutely drop you like a hot potato. So in that space, it's best not to rely on them at all and go into other avenues and become your own self-fulfilling, self-sustaining vegetable garden of life to rely on yourself. And this is why we become such independent people and don't receive help, ask for help, period. Because we always got let down by our parent when we asked them for help. Everyone's going, oh my God, that's what really happened. So yes, it is really sad, and yes, it sucks, don't get me wrong. However, as soon as you start putting these few boundaries in place, and then you're sitting back and observing, you're filling your own cup, you know that you're doing it for you, you know that you deserve it, and you're not having your energy leaked out or saying yes and appreciating that your help that actually has conditions applied, because then there'll be something that you need to do in return for that favor that they did you. Oh, remember that time that we did this for you? Well, you now need to do this for us. And it'll be something outrageous. And it'll be something that you just actually can't manage because you don't have time, or it's totally unethical, whatever that can look like. So let me know if this is resonating, and if anybody has any questions, drop them in the comments. So one of the other spaces too is that when we're starting to grieve this space and this relationship, that this parent won't be what we desire them to be. And, don't get me wrong, you'll probably always have some little desire that you want this parent to be a parent. Don't get me wrong. There'll always be a desire that you actually just want them to go, hey, actually ring, and just go, you're doing a really good job, or I'm sorry that I haven't been there for you lately. I've had a lot going on, or even though I don't call all the time, you're on my mind. Just those beautiful things that we just love, so that we know that we're actually a valued member of the family, or a valued sibling, daughter, son of the family. So some of the things that you can do though to grieve that relationship that you know that it's never gonna be can be something like, I'm a fan of Voxer. I'm a fan of going and doing a voice memo and talking it out, because what is awesome about that is that you physically hear it. So you're being heard and you can hear your words out loud, which goes to an even deeper layer. So when you're physically Voxering yourself or voice memoing yourself, you can actually hear what's going on. So it gives you that level of being heard and being validated and being seen out loud. It actually gives you all of those things in that one moment for yourself. So I really love the power of doing voice memos out loud. So I would do a voice memo out loud as to why you're putting these boundaries in place. I'm putting this boundary in place because of this, this, and this. And that's you writing a little soul contract to yourself, in that this is what I accept as acceptable behaviors for how I wish and desire to be treated. And this is how I treat people. So you're actually putting in place and telling your subconscious mind, actually, this is my desire as how I wish to be treated. This is my desire as to what's acceptable and not acceptable as to how someone will speak to me. Because if you're out in public, or you're in a workplace, or you're teaching your kiddos lessons in life with how to negotiate and socialize and deal with conflict in the playground, or whatever that might look like, you're going to say these same things. That's actually unacceptable behavior. That's bullying. But we're going to take it from our parent. It's exactly the same principle. So you tell yourselves those same things. The other thing could be that when you're talking about a particular boundary with a parent, because they will actually come in and snowball that boundary altogether. It's, talk about, why am I struggling with this boundary? Why is it so hard for me to actually say, this does not work for me, using one of the statements that I used? Why am I struggling? What am I worried about? What's underneath that layer? Underneath that layer could be whatever they're going to come back with. They're going to come back with something anyway, because it wouldn't have mattered whether you say that boundary statement or whether you say something else. They're going to come back with something. So you're fearing their response. Their response is going to come regardless. Doesn't matter what you actually say. It's coming, because they don't respond to listen. They respond just to tell you what they want and make sure that you're going to do it for them. So that's one really good one. Another one too is voice memo yourself about family issues that have arisen in your life and how they've come about and where they are now. So that's a really good exercise in recognizing where it stemmed from, how many times you've seen it happen. So then you've seen how many times that cycle has come around and what you've actually done in that moment and why. And then you're now going to make a different choice, make a different decision to get a different result, because you're sick of being on that spiral that keeps going round and round and round like a merry-go-round. And it's, I'm actually going to just try this out and see what happens, and then sit back and observe. And that's, what it is. And in questions where you could be really curious and you actually just want to try it on with your parent, ask them, what was your childhood like? How did you grow up? What was it like living with grandma and granddad, or nana and poppy, or whatever that looks like? Tell me about your childhood. Were you allowed to talk about your feelings? Were you allowed to, and they will tell you, oh, this happened and we were a seen, not heard family, and we had to sit at the table and eat all of our dinner, and we had to do this and we had to do that. And, the stories will come out as to then how they were raised. And then you can see how that pattern's being repeated, or perhaps how these toxic traits have come about, because these toxic traits are learnt. You're not born with them. So those can be really good questions too to ask once you're prepared to hear the answer and take the time to actually hear the answer. So then you're actually learning about where your parent's coming from. And then this is also a great space where once you've healed a little bit and recovered a little bit and these boundaries are working and you feel confident to be able to ask these questions, that you can actually sit back and actually see from a compassion standpoint and not the grief standpoint of, well, they're doing the best they can. They don't know any better. And don't get me wrong, it sucks when you have to be the parent to the parent. But unfortunately, that's the way it's going to be. It'll never be a reverse role other than that. However, once you can sit back with compassion and go, well, I can't expect anything more from them than what they're actually already doing, because they can't do anything more. And if they could do anything more, they would have already shown it. And that's pretty much it, plain and simple. If they've never shown you anything more than you've gotten, they will never give you anything more than you've received. So that is my message on this one for today. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate everybody being here and hope that has been helpful, and would love to know that if you try any of these things out, let me know how you go. Would love to hear.